there are always little nuggets of truth. They take truth and they twist it. They take truth and they warp it into something that could be true. They literally change reality. My parents could not afford to get me things. That is a fact. And they took that and they made my opinion of that situation. My parents don't love me because they don't buy me things. Like, they don't buy me things because they can't afford it. But they changed my understanding of that to be they don't buy me things because they don't love me. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Bri Speaks Podcast. I am your lovely host, Bri Speaks, and today we will be talking about narcissistic grooming from the perspective, yes, of, your typical, usually a man who does it to a woman or a young woman specifically, or a naive woman or a woman with low self-esteem. There are criteria that they target, but also we're going to zoom way out and we're going to look at it from the lens of the patriarchy, from the lens of racism, capitalism, and religion. Like, those are those big old systems. Always call them systems of separation, because we're all supposed to be one. And then these systems are put in place to separate us into our little individual categories so that we oppress one another, or we resent the if you're on the top of the hierarchy, you're going to oppress the ones at the bottom, even if it's by accident, even if you don't know you're doing it. And then the people at the bottom, you're typically going to be angry at or resent the people who are higher on the hierarchy because they have this privilege that you don't have and that you wish that you had in many cases, or feel like you deserve that you have, and most times you do, but you don't realize that those people are at the top not because they are the people who are creating the system of oppression. They are just upholding it by accident, or sometimes on purpose. Hey, can't give everyone the benefit of the doubt. But yes, so that is what we're going to be looking at. How does narcissism or narcissistic grooming or grooming, what does that have to do with patriarchy and racism and religion and capitalism? Bri, what are you talking about? Come walk with me on this journey. So let's start with the process of narcissistic grooming, or just if you want to call it grooming in general, but I love throwing the word narcissism on there because it always applies to narcissists, and then it sometimes applies to just regular people and things. So we have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps that we look at for that. So the first thing that a narcissist does will target their victim. And again, so this goes back to if it's a man, because it typically is, they will look at they'll look for their victim. And how they choose their victim. There was a study that was done that looked at predators, perpetrators, criminals, bad men. And they showed them women or people just walking down the street, a series of videos of people walking down the street. And all of the perpetrators, and then they asked the perpetrators, hey, who would you pick as your victim? And each of those perpetrators picked the same few people that they would target as their victims. And who were those people? They were typically women who, walk with their head down, walked in a really closed-bodied fashion, walked with not they're not paying attention, walk without purpose, walk without confidence. You emit an aura about yourself when you are in a vulnerable place in your life, when you're in a low resonance, you're vibrating at a low vibration, like you're going through something. A lot of times, if you're not conscious and aware of that, you will walk like that. Your aura will emit that vulnerability. Whenever I did have low self-esteem, I was afraid to look people in the eye. I walked with my head down. I walked looking at the ground. I walked trying to be as invisible as I can. And it is sad because I know people, women specifically, who were victims of some sort of trauma or abuse, usually sexual, and they would literally say things like, I tried to be invisible. I tried to, wear baggy clothes. I tried to cover myself. You do all these things because you've been hurt before. And so you try to make yourself invisible. And what that does is it actually puts a gigantic target on your forehead, saying that I want no one to see me. I want to be unseen. It also shows I have no support. People don't see me. I'm used to people not seeing me. And so it makes it very easy for an evil, awful person to pick you out and say hey, one, I see you. and two, that for them to like give you the love and the attention and the adoration that you so desperately want when you are in this place of hurt and trauma and brokenness and lack and emptiness. You don't know that you're looking for all these things, but whenever it's presented to you, it looks like the best thing in the world. It looks like God has sent someone finally for you to give you everything that you want. And so you just suck it all up. You just eat it all up. You're just like, wow, this is the best thing ever. And little do you know that you were a target this whole time. That is how people, so that's step one, is they target their victim, and that's how they pick their target. They pick someone who is vulnerable, weak, at their lowest, or are just like not supported and looking for something to lean on, something to support them, something to love them, something to fill the hole, fill the gap in their heart. Okay. Now I'm thinking, do I want to, let's do that. And so, okay, so that's from the lens of like a one-on-one narcissist. Now let's look at it from the patriarchy. The patriarchy targets women. It creates this hole in women to show them from very young that you are nothing without a husband and a child. Most of your worth comes from being a mother, taking care of the household. Your worth does not come from being politically active, from advocating for your country. It does not come from doing things that are quote unquote manly. You don't want to be too masculine. It comes from you being beautiful. Your job as a woman is to be beautiful at all times. So like that is, the patriarchy puts those like weaknesses and vulnerabilities in women from a very young age. Just look at all the Disney movies that show you that, a woman has to be saved by a man. And I know that sounds like cliche feminism tropism, but it truly is. It's like when you watch those movies as a young girl, all you want is a Prince Charming. That is, you get your Barbie and you want your Ken. Like from a very young age, these messages are ingrained in women so that they then become a very easy target from the patriarchy, because the patriarchy literally creates the holes in women that they then will make the man the solution to fill. So that's the patriarchy. How does racism target? Okay. And this is going to be, a little ironic, but racism actually targets white people. That is crazy for me to say out my mouth, but white people are victims of racism. It tells them that you are everything that you need to be without doing any work. It shows them that you are the center of the universe without having to find yourself. It tells you that you don't need to be an individual with uniqueness. It actually tells you the opposite of that. It tells you need to assimilate. You need to be as white as possible. You need to let go of any culture that you had. If you were French, or if you were Italian, or if you were German, or if you were Scottish, or if you were any sort of, European descendant with a culture and a heritage and a language and a foods and the things that come with culture, it says you have to release all of that in order to gain the privileges of being white, so that you can gain these benefits from being white. And then because it disconnects white people from their roots and their heritages, the same way it did with Black people. But Black people in America have, we have grown our own roots. Essentially, we have figured out how to create our own culture, even though we were disconnected from our original ones. It does that for white people. And then, so not only does it disconnect them from their cultural heritage and roots, it gives them this script of who they are and who they're supposed to be. And it never allows them to figure out who they actually are. And so because they don't know who they actually are and who they would be without whiteness, or without this script of, grow up, go to college, get married, from corporate America, work your way up the ladder, have kids, die, rinse and repeat, they don't find who they are. And that in and of itself creates a hole. It creates a hole in the soul of white people. Not to say white people don't, have souls. That's not what I'm saying. But there is a lack of spiritual connection within the white community. I understand that they go to church, and we'll talk about religion in a second, but it is not the same as knowing who you are in your spirit and your soul, of being authentically yourselves. How many times have I been in a corporate America setting, or any Black person, Black women or Black men, but I feel like Black women specifically have this issue, where we're in a corporate America meeting, and people are all uncomfortable about what's being said by leadership, or they don't understand what's being said by leadership, or they don't agree with what's being said by leadership. And the Black person or the Black woman or the person of color will say, hey, I don't understand, or hey, this doesn't make sense, or hey, this doesn't feel right. And On the back end, we'll all get all these messages from white women saying, "I'm so glad you spoke up about it. I'm so glad you said something." But they wouldn't say it out loud themselves in corporate America because they have this role to play, this docility to play, this submitting to authority to play. And if they don't play it, then they are ostracized from their white group and they are seen as problematic or they're seen as confrontational. And so they never say anything and they allow people of color who are going to say something because we're not raised with that same mentality of we're not allowed to question authority. And in fact, we're raised with the opposite of like always question authority because we can't trust these folks. um, so they come to us and they congratulate us on the back end, but they never help us or support us in front of everyone else. And that is a product of not feeling of racism, is the long story short, so racism creates victims out of white people, and it, like, not even victims, but like it creates a hole in white people, and the hole that hole can never be filled, and like that's where consumerism comes in. They tell white people you will be enough if you buy the nice house, if you have all the latest Labubus or the latest Stanley Cups or the latest Lululemon tights or whatever it is that white people are consuming for the day. You have to be on that trend or you will be left behind out of the culture of whiteness. And that is how that's how white people are victimized. If you are in this white space, you have to consume in order to be whole. And it's, let's not even talk about the environment and what that does to the environment in this over consumerist culture. But that is how white people are victimized. It's like racism creates the problem of white people having to be superior, and they show that superiority by having more stuff, and by having more in order to have more stuff you have to spend more money. So you're not helping anyone but the people who are taking your money. But because of racism and in wanting to ensure that you are not seen as poor or black, you do what you are told. So that is how white people are the targeted victim. Capitalism. Let's go into capitalism because we're already there. Capitalism, it targets their victim. All of us are a victim of capitalism. We are all victims of capitalism. Capitalism literally creates so I would say not all of these, so also patriarchy, racism, capitalism, and religion, they all create holes in order to in order to be able to present a solution. While I will say with a one-on-one narcissist victim, that is the only time where the victim will likely already have a hole, and that's why they're targeted. But in all these other ones, literally the system will create the hole in order to create a victim that they can then exploit. So that is well, there was something else I wanted to say about narcissists and how that's what I was going to say. And while most narcissists will target a victim based on, a vulnerability that they can already see, a lot of times, even if the person doesn't have a vulnerability, they will still create a vulnerability. And we'll get into that, but they will do things like, tell you you're pretty all the time, and then all of a sudden, one day say, "Hey, I don't really like how your hair is today." Boom, created a hole. Boom, created a vulnerability. Boom, created something. They took a small piece of their validation away, and then if you're not completely whole and secure in yourself, that will then easily be exploited later. So all of these systems, they will create problems and then present themselves as the solutions later, and that solution will only benefit the system and or the narcissist and never benefit the victim, and that is why the victim is a victim. Okay, so we did patriarchy, we did racism, capitalism, everyone's a victim. and the way they create the hole in capitalism is by breaking down communities is the biggest one. It's like we used to be able to do everything for each other. We would live in large households with like a lot of family. And so we could lean on our family for babysitting. We would be expected to take care of grandma and grandpa, in the back room. But now we have to lean on nursing homes, and now we have to lean on babysitters. We used to grow our own food or grow some of our own food. And now we have to they took that away. And now we have to rely on purchasing groceries. Things used to be in walking distance, or we would own our own horse if you want to go back that far. But now they literally make cities not walkable on purpose so that you have to have a car. When you go in the South is really the perfect, I think, example of all of these things, all of these systems working at their peak. When you have all these systems working at their peak, you get Southern America. They have no public transportation, no reliable public transportation systems. They have everything is very separated. Everything is the community is it's a lot of racism, a lot of racism in the South. a lot of patriarchy in the South. And so in capitalism, again, it eats away at the community, it eats away at the family, because if you have the entire, if you have 2 or 3 generations in one house, that's only one refrigerator, maybe 1 or 2 TVs. Like, everyone can share resources. The moment you can share resources, capitalism starts to break down, because capitalism thrives as a system of separation. It thrives on separating people. The more you can separate mom from dad, from sister, from like brother. If the family is not interacting with their kids, now I can give all my kids iPads. If I can overwork mom and dad and they're tired, now I can ensure like they have to pay to go out on date nights. Even like just a date night, people have to reserve that time to make sure they have that together time, and they go out and spend money as a luxury item. But that is because it is hard to find time in just your regular day-to-day life. And okay, I'll take that. You can find cheap dates. You don't have to be a consumer to go out on a date night. But it's just like, again, it's like there's something there. There's something there. And so capitalism, it creates the whole that makes us all victims by taking away our community, taking away shared resources, taking away communal resources, and selling it all back to us, selling back friendships. Like good one is we used to pick up our friends from the airport just because it was our friends or our family, and now we have to buy Ubers because our friends are working and now they're tired, and now you don't even want to bother your friends and your family because you know that they're tired just like you are, that they're broke just like you are. So it perpetuates itself and makes the situation it thrives, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy after a while, because you don't have money, you can't go out, so you can't make community, and you can't strengthen those relationships. Capitalism literally weakens the bonds between people and replaces it with stuff and money. And then you have all this stuff, but everyone feels so alone. You got all these computers, all these devices, but you feel like you don't have anyone you can lean on. You got 1,000, 10,000 followers on Instagram, but if you had a mental breakdown, you couldn't call anyone. That is the issue with capitalism in the world right now. It's just it breaks down the family unit, it breaks down the community unit, and it sells you back products to fill up its place. It tells you you're ugly, and it sells you beauty products. It sells you calorie dense, nutritionally lacking food, so that you eat food but you're still hungry, and so you eat more food. So you're spending more money on this food that is never going to fill you up, and then you gain all this weight because it has so many calories but no nutrients. And then they sell you pharmaceuticals, they sell you drugs in order for you to lose the weight that they're the reason that you gain. You wouldn't have gained the weight had you had a walkable city and healthy fresh foods everywhere. But no, they gave you a non-walkable city and a fast food restaurants. And again, that is something you see in the South. The South is really just the perfect picture of exploitation at its peak. It's just really, because you have terrible obesity, terrible health outcomes, terrible outcomes for Black people, and then a whole bunch of religion, and then a whole bunch in church, and then you got the Bible Belt down there. And so let's go into religion. Religion, how does it target its victims? Again, any of these narcissistic systems, they target their victims when they are at their lowest. And so religion does the same thing. When people go into church for the first time, it is usually, if they weren't, grown up in it, they turn to it when they are at their lowest, whenever they feel like everything is going wrong, everything is going terrible. Let me come to the church. Let me go get saved. Let me give my life to Jesus. And then the church is like, boom, perfect. I can now put my claws into you and give you and indoctrinate your mind, control your mind, tell you everything, that give you all the love that you've been looking for, all this care that you've been looking for, this community that you've been looking for. And then I can take advantage of you. So whenever you do get back on your feet, I can exploit you for all your money and all your resources and all your labor. And another way that it creates victims is, and if you've been listening to me, you'll know what I'm going to say, is it just the fact that it tells you are born into sin, you are born not enough, you are born not good enough, and the only way that you can get to heaven is by serving and worshiping and giving your life over to Jesus. That is creating a literal life of lack. It is creating a literal life where you are moving from a place of, I am not enough. How many songs in Christianity says, I'm not worthy, I am not worthy, I am not worthy? You say stuff like that in your mind over and over and over again, and it sinks into your subconscious. It doesn't just go away when you leave church. It doesn't just apply to when you're talking about God or Jesus. It goes into your psyche that I am not worthy, I am not enough. And it's just like, how dare you say that about yourself? How dare you say that about yourself when you're such a divine and incredible creation? Do you know what it took for you to get here, to be listening to this podcast right now? It took nothing less short of a miracle for you to have been the one sperm that was selected from your father, the one egg that was selected from your mother, get through the entire gestation period, get through your first year of life and not die of sudden infant death syndrome, to actually be raised in this country or any country that has technology, to grow up. Just like there are just so many things that had to happen for you to be here right now. And for the Bible just to say that, you're not worthy, you're not enough. Like it says you're special in his eyes, but it doesn't ever teach you to be special in your own eyes. It never teaches you to be that you are worth it just being. It tells you your worth is dependent on how much you worship, how much you praise, how much you give your life over to Christ and the church. It never tells you that you are just enough just because. It never tells you are enough just by existing, just by breathing. And like, even I know people, I can just feel it in my bones. People are listening to this right now and saying like you're not enough. Like if you're just existing, you're a waste of space essentially. But it's just like, why is it that your human value is tied to your ability to generate something, generate worth, generate product, generate cash, generate revenue, or generate something? Like, why is that your value? You are a human being and you are just existing and accumulating knowledge. Like, even if you do absolutely nothing for your whole life and then you die, your body will be used as fertilizer for the ground. You've done something. You've done something. You have done something. Whatever. Okay, so that is how each of these systems of separation creates and then targets their victims. So that's step 1. Step 2 is what a narcissist does is they gain access to their victim. After they target their victim, they gain access to that victim. So if we go to the patriarchy, I mean, I don't know. I'm gonna skip this step because like they all gain access to them again by creating these artificial problems and then stepping in as a solution. So that is how they get. So step 1, they target the victim. Step 2, they gain access to their victim. So, so that's it. They're going to gain access. If it's just like the regular narcissist, they, walk past them in the street and drop their pen and say, oh my God, you dropped something. Oh, you didn't? Well, here's my phone number anyway. Some cheesy pickup line. And the patriarchy and capitalism and racism, they have access to all of us every day. It's like, it's just the way that these systems have been set up. There is no escaping them. So they all have access to us, and it's our job to recognize them, see them, and then combat them with our own intuition and personal awareness and internal work. So, okay, next step that they do, they desensitize the victim. That is step 3. So from a regular narcissist standpoint, here's what that looks like. So going back to my original example, a man will tell their woman that they're beautiful all the time and then say, oh, I don't like your hair like that. And then, never doesn't say it for a while, but then, she, says something else like, oh, I don't like that outfit. Just small things over time. So it's nothing large and awful. And the same thing. So like with patriarchy, again, they'll put out these Disney movies. I don't know. I don't know how, they desensitize you to the concept. They desensitize you to this being an unnatural and weird thing. They just do things over and over and over again in very small and maybe slightly different ways so that you don't notice. So like in the Bible, if we skip to religion, they say, God is this external authority figure that resides over you and you have to listen. And then it's like the 10 Commandments says like, oh, you got to listen to your mother and your father. And then there's like a passage that says, listen to the government. And then there's like another passage that says like, if you're a slave, listen to your master. Like it has all of these subliminal cues that say you have to listen to the people who are in positions of authority over you. And so it's just so over time, especially coming from a child, if you raise from a child to think this way, you don't question authority. You just don't question authority because you've become desensitized to the fact that you even have that ability to do so. So same thing with capitalism. It's like you become so desensitized to ads telling you that you need to buy this beauty product, or ads telling you that you can lose weight, so you need to lose weight, or ads telling you that you're not enough, that you're not worthy, that you need to buy this new car, that you need to, have a bigger diamond ring, that you need to have bigger lips or a bigger behind. Or it's just like you become desensitized to all of these messages because they happen so often over time that it's like it's no longer a surprise, it's no longer a shock, it's just normal, it's just everyday life. life. So same thing with racism. You see a cop every 2.5 days hurting a person of color, or a Black person specifically, really. And it's just like, that's just another day, another dollar. It happens every day in America. Same thing with these freaking guns. It's like, there's a school pewing every 2.5 days at this point. And it's just like, well, it's just another school pewing. Okay, what are we going to do? And you just, again, you become desensitized to it, to the point where it's like, hey, this is just life. And it's so gross, because whenever other outsiders looking in, they'll see, this victim, and they're like, hey girl, you shouldn't let your husband talk to you like that, or like, your husband always talks to you like that, and you have been being berated and insulted and torn down every day for the last 3 years by this time, that it's normal, it's every day, this is how you live your life. And so a person outside is like, that's weird. But you're just like, huh, is it? This does not happen to everybody? Is everyone not suffering under the weight of capitalism, of inflation, of low wages and high labor? No, that's just us? Huh. That's weird. Well, no, it's not weird. Well, you guys are weird. And here's where the next step come in. Step 4 is isolate your victim. A narcissist will always isolate their victim, because it's much easier to abuse and exploit your victim if they have no idea what normal looks like. And that is what America has been doing for many, 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 many years, is they have made sure that America doesn't have access to global news very easily. Like other countries, you go to other countries, they'll have news about surrounding countries and about the US, like just like on a regular channel. You don't have to go searching for it. Or like even in their regular news, they'll put like global news in their regular news, but not in America. If you grew up in America, you barely know what other countries are called. You don't even know what other political systems look like. You don't know what other economies look like, because America has intentionally isolated us as a population away from global news, because if we knew how other countries were living, then we would have been up in arms. It would have never gotten this far had we known that other countries had free universal health care and it was working. Had we known that other countries had, gun laws and gun restrictions that actually affected the number of mass pew-pewings on a regular basis. If we knew that, I think Japan just passed a 4-day work week, and other countries are passing 4-day work weeks, we would have been up in arms. But no, they have isolated us from global news and global progress, so that we in America don't see that, things could be different. And now people are saying that, like, seeing that, things could be different. That reminds me of whenever, TikTok got banned for 2.5 seconds, and everybody went over to the Red Note app. And Red Note, I know Chinese people were like, oh my God, Americans, hi. We had heard so much propaganda about you guys. We heard that you all like don't have health care. Isn't that crazy? And then Americans were like, haha. Well, yeah, we don't, we have to pay for our health care. And like, yeah, it is the reason why most Americans go bankrupt. And they were like, oh, haha, well, okay, sorry that's true. But like, I heard you guys can't afford rent. Is that true? Is it like your rent is like, over 30 or 50% of your income? And America was like, yeah, that is true. And they were like, oh no, what? Oh, okay, well, I'm sorry to hear that, but like, I heard that you guys don't, like, I don't know. I hear after you pay off your house, you still have to pay taxes on it. And America was like, yeah, we property taxes. You guys don't have property taxes? They were like, no. Once we pay for our house, that's it. There's just so many things that a lot of people from America ended up learning that China has, but America is always going to say China's this big bad communist country, and they have all these terrible things, and they have a dictator, and they, basically pew women in the street. I have a friend who went to China right out of college, and she said she was going to be back. It's been 10 years. Still haven't seen my friend. I still talk to her on, on the socials, and I'm like, I always ask her, "You coming back?" And she was like, "Yeah, I'll be back next year." It's been 10 years. She ain't coming back, and it's just like, and why should she? If she look on the news, on their news in China that actually has global news from America, and sees what's going on, why would she come back? What is she said? She's never felt more safe. Like you can leave your wallet in China, or I think it's actually one. And I think I've heard another person say you can leave your wallet on the train in Japan and come back and it'll still be there. It's like, that is like, and same thing I think in Dubai. So it's like there's so much safety everywhere else, because people there, they respect women. Well, I don't know. Maybe not in Dubai. Well, I don't know. because I don't want to say just because, you're a Muslim country, you don't respect women. They respect women in like a different way. Again, I am anti-Abrahamic religion. So it's, although they respect women in a different way, it's still patriarchal. And so while they wouldn't, maybe like while a random person can't beat up a woman, their husband might be able to. I don't know. I'm not going to speak out of turn. But there are different places where women are much safer. Your things are much safer. People are not so desperate to have to steal and harm in order to survive. So it's just like not so much, there's not so much desperation. It's not so much inequality in these other countries they're just better governed. So back to isolate your victim. These systems always isolate their victims. So same thing with, okay, so we go to religion, isolates all Christians. All Christians are isolated from the church, and you somehow slowly but surely, all of your friends end up being Christian because everyone else are these, secular people or people of the world, and they tell you don't want to be tempted. Or when you're like, just from like a base level narcissistic relationship, they always tell you that, they don't like your friends, or your friends are this, or your friends are that, or your friends are lying. Your parents don't like you. When I was in my abusive relationship, my abuser told me that that my mom and dad didn't love me. And it's just like, I was like 18, and I had a a somewhat strained relationship with my mom, and I hadn't had a strained relationship with my dad, but both of them were broke, and my abuser was like less broke. And so they were supporting me a lot. And there was still ended up being financial abuse, of course. It's always in there. Because at the end of the day, all of these systems are just there to extrapolate your money and your time and your labor and a little bit of your spirit too. But when they were grooming me, they were telling me that my parents didn't love me, like that basically no one loved me, no one cared about me, and the only people that loved me is the abuser. And so you start, again, after a while, you just start to believe it, and you start to see the actions of others through the lens of what the abuser has told you. And so if my parents couldn't afford to get me something, while old me would have known my parents are just broke and they can't get nothing for nobody, manipulated me as like, yeah, they could get it for me, but they're just choosing not to because they don't love me. They don't care about me. And because if they really cared, they would buy it for me. And so now I have this manipulated lens, this warped lens and view of my friends and my family and people who have always been there for me, because I have been told these lies that have changed my brain chemistry. And now I don't see the truth anymore. I see what my abuser wants me to see, which is literally, that's how mind control works. It's how mind control works. People think mind control is you put a clock in front of them and it goes tick tock, and now you are clucking like a chicken. Like, no, that is not it. It is slow but sure, like just like changing your perception of reality. They literally change your perception of reality, and you slowly fall for it because there are always little nuggets of truth. They take truth and they twist it. They take truth and they warp it into something that could be true. They literally change reality. Like, my parents could not afford to get me things. That is a fact. And they took that and they made my opinion of that situation. My parents don't love me because they don't buy me things. Like, they don't buy me things because they can't afford it. But they changed my understanding of that to be, they don't buy me things because they don't love me. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that wild? That is so crazy. Like, that's so crazy. I used to think that about my parents, that they don't love me just because they don't buy me stuff. And I had never thought that before. I grew up in poverty. I know how poor my family is, but again, there is a sense of truth of like, if they really wanted to, they would. But it's also like, it's like, yeah, but like I was I was past 18, which is, again, not really an adult, but you know, at that time in the Black community is kind of an adult, and I had a baby at this point. So it's like, they are not going to, my mom was homeless, like my dad, and my dad lives in the South, like, and on a fixed income. So it's like, it's not like they really they paid their paycheck to paycheck and or no job. So no, it's like, yeah, in some cases, if they really wanted to, they could or they would, but it's like, they gave me love in the ways that they knew how to give me, and I love them and I appreciate them for it. They gave me everything that they could. I'm sitting here on a podcast doing perfectly well for myself because of the things that my parents sacrificed to give me. And to have someone change my mind about my parents just because they couldn't afford to get me gifts is bananas. But that happens so often. So the same thing like happens with religion. You see regular people in the world doing regular things, but after being indoctrinated again and again and again and being told these people are sinners, these people are awful, you slowly will isolate yourself from the people who were your friends, because instead of seeing like, just people going out for drinks, now you see sinners. Now you see people of the world. Now you see people who are trying to tempt you into evil. Like, it's just like, no, that's not what it is. Capitalism is like I don't know, what's a good example for capitalism? They teach you how to, I mean, it's really the lack of self-worth is all what capitalism does. It teaches you that if you don't have a lot of money, then you are not worthy. And if you are not doing things to show that you have a lot of money, then you're not worthy. So I will always use this blonde hair example and I won't even use that one. Something I heard recently is like white people don't like necessarily cleaning their houses, because if you're rich, you can afford someone to clean your house for you. And so instead of cleaning your own house, you'll either let your house get dirty, or if you can afford it, you'll hire out a cleaner. And it's like, that is such a warped perception of the truth. The truth is everyone needs to have a clean house. Everyone's house, and cleaning it's a spiritual practice, honestly. Cleaning your house, cleaning your body, it's all like, it's a spiritual practice. I don't know how to explain that better than just those words, but there's something there that helps your spirit of cleaning your home, yourself, understanding your home, being one with your home. It helps with appreciating how much stuff you have, appreciating, like, it helps with things, with staying in touch with material goods, yourself, etc. But turning that into, if you have to clean your own house, then you're poor. And if you're poor, you're not worth it. You're not worthy. You are less than. It's like, that is like, you're like, you have to clean your house, but changing it into something else, that is mind control. It is mind control. And the last is like the patriarchy. They teach women that, like, you are the bearer of life, and which is true. They take a truth and then they switch it and say, like, you have to bear life in order to be valuable. Like, if you're not a mom, you're not doing your part in the world. It's like, your value comes from being a mother just because you can have babies. That's crazy. That is wild. Yes, I have this capability, but that does not mean my entire self-worth, everything about me, comes down to if I elect if I opt into that. Y'all, I'm just like, the mind control, the manipulation of truth in this world is nuts. It is nuts. We live in the upside down. All right, so that is step 4, isolating your victim. Step 5, exploit. And this is where the fun part comes in. Ooh, the fun part for the narcissist, of course, or the system of separation, not for you and I, is exploit your victim. And so once you've got them in this place of, they're desensitized to whatever harm that you've committed, they're isolated from people who can pull them out or teach them what is right or what is like actually good for them as a person, or who can highlight the harm. You are, as a narcissist, you're rocking and rolling at this point. It's like, if you got this woman, you're just like, yeah, you've said their self-esteem, you've plummeted their self-esteem into the ground, and then now all they want to do is please you, and they want to get your validation back again. They want you to go back into that kind, like the love bombing mode. They want your love bombing back. They want you to love them again. They want you to care for them again. They want you to see them again. And so they are at this point where they will do anything for that. And you, as a narcissist, will exploit that again and again and again. So now it's like, if you do love me and you do care about me, you'll give me all your money. If you do love me and you do care about me, you'll do whatever I say. You'll go do this. You'll go do that. Like, so as my abuser, I was poor still at the time. And again, a lot of vulnerability comes with not having money. I was on food stamps back in this day. But my abuser and I was working and I was in school, mind you guys. And my abuser would take my food stamp card that I got food stamps for me and my child, and they would take it and then and they would use it for whatever they wanted to use it for, filling up their refrigerator. And then while I would have to use my very small checks that I was getting from working part-time to get food for me and my child. And I had to pay them rent, mind you. Which I'm just like, I'm thinking back on that and I'm like, y'all, that is so crazy. I was giving away my food stamps while still having to pay for my own food, while having to pay this person rent on top of that. And they framed it as, I was just being helpful to the household. I was just helping the household. But it was like, and then also I was like doing the dishes and I was cooking and I was washing their clothes. Like I was literally a built-in maid. I was literally a built-in maid while I was while I was in school, and my grades were slipping quite often because of all the work I had to do at home. I couldn't even afford to get to school sometimes because I was giving them so much of my money, which was a part of the plan. They really didn't want me to drop out of school. That was the purpose, because they don't want you to actually get to a place where you can advance yourself. Like there's always jealousy. There's always jealousy with any narcissistic victim, like upgrading themselves to a place that is better than the narcissist. On one hand, they don't want you to do better, but on the other hand, they love it when you make more money because then they can take it from you. So I could see my abuser always like battling with that of like, I don't want her to graduate college because then, she'll be better than me. I never graduated college. But then it's like, I do want her to make more money because then I can exploit that and I can take that money from her. So yeah, patriarchy exploits women left and right. Just, puts all women in the household, makes them very busy with child rearing, doesn't put the responsibility of child rearing on the father in any sort of equal manner, allowing for men to be able to have the time, the freedom, and the mental capacity to gain more money, gain more political power, gain more economic power, and rise in the society, while leaving women at home unable to express themselves in any sort of creative way, gain any sort of economic mobility, or gain any sort of political power, which is ultimately what we actually need. Racism. How does racism exploit? It exploits all of us, but again, it exploits white people. It abuses people of color and Black people by not allowing us to gain the economic mobility that we otherwise would be able to in the system of racism, but it exploits white people the most. It exploits Black people in jails. I will say the prison system is very exploitative of Black people and people of color, but it exploits white people's money because it creates this, again, like every system, like we don't have healthcare because they created laws because the government put out this narrative that if we had free healthcare, everyone would get free healthcare, like immigrants and Black people and criminals. Which criminals, I think people in jail actually do get healthcare. Well, no, they don't get good healthcare. They get like the bare minimum. But yeah, so they said, healthcare would go to people who don't need it or don't deserve it, and your taxes would go up and all this stuff. Like they put out this narrative that if there was universal free healthcare, white people, you would have to pay for it, and your money would be going to people who quote unquote don't deserve it. Same thing with tuition. It was like, America had free tuition at one point, but as soon as Black people were able to enter schools, they put tuition in place so that Black people had a barrier to climb. And that is exploiting white people for their money. But using racism, like they fearmonger white people so much with Black people and people of color that they are afraid to be near them, afraid to be in the same neighborhoods as them, afraid to go in the same schools, afraid to be in the same classrooms, afraid to be in the same churches. And so they make you all pay. They make white people pay again and again and again to flee from Blackness and Black people and people who are not white. And it is at a cost. It is always at a cost of the money in your pockets. Like racism exploits white people. It implants fear into white people, unjust, unwarranted, unreal fear into white people. And it makes them pay to have that fear mitigated. It makes them pay to have that fear to protect them from these big, scary Black people. Racism exploits white people left and right. So that's racism. Capitalism, of course, it exploits everybody by making us all pay for things that are natural. Like we all go back to foraging. Like there was a time where we would just get what nature gave us. Like if we knew how to pick the correct acorns and pick the correct plants, if our education system was completely set up for just ecology, I think that's the right word, of like the study of plants and plants as foods and agriculture and like learning how to plant our own foods, learning about the seasons. Like if all of our education was just how can you feed yourself with the world's resources, we would be so fine and we would not need capitalism. We would not need capitalism if it was just how do you forage for food? How do you kill food? How do you create your own clothes? Like that's really all and then create your own house. That's all those are the skills we need to live. But instead of teaching us that, they teach us all this other crap that doesn't make any sense, that doesn't actually matter. And that is like all of these things are proxies for food, water, clothes, shelter, and community. Like that's all we need as human beings. That's all we need: food, water, clothes, shelter, and community. That's it. That's all. But capitalism makes you buy your own food, makes you buy your house, makes you buy your own water, makes you buy community, and then make you buy your own clothes. Like you can't literally, that's like the 5 things that human beings need to live and survive and to thrive. Capitalism took them all away and said, here, now give me money for it. Now work for it and then make money, and then you can have it back with the money that you have worked for. When it's just like, I could have used the original labor that I did to work for the money to get the stuff. I could have just used that same labor to get the stuff. Like, I could have just used that labor to get the stuff. And then, I don't know if y'all know about the conservation of energy law, but anytime energy changes states, there's always a little bit of energy loss. So every time you fill up your gas tank and then it goes into your engine to go from like regular energy to kinetic energy, or kinetic energy to something else energy, like every time a matter changes states, it loses a little bit of energy is lost. And so not only are they taking away things that like we would naturally have and making us work for it, it's just like we have to work harder. That's what I'm saying. It's like we have to work harder. Like we literally have to work 10 times as hard to get a house, water, food, clothes, shelter, and community than we would like to get the money to get those things than we would have to work if we could just have the education to do those things ourselves. Does that make sense? Like, we are literally working harder for the same stuff that we would have gotten naturally on our own if we just had the skills, but they ensure that they don't teach us those skills so that we are dependent on these systems. Ooh, pisses me off. All right. And then the last thing is maintain control. A narcissist will have to, like, they will do anything to maintain that control. And for a narcissist, again, whenever their victim is like, I don't really like this anymore, or like, this is starting to really feel wrong. I don't want to be here anymore. They will reward the victim. They'll give them that validation. They'll put them back in that place of, no, 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 things are just fine. Don't worry about it. Like, I'm sorry. I'll never do that again. Or like, oh, I know I did. You're right. I did cross the line. I'll back up and it'll never happen again. And they'll wait until you've forgotten it, or your things are docile or like something. They'll wait until just when they feel like the time is right, and boop, back at it again, back at it again, like we never left. That is, patriarchy does that. It's just like, oh, let me give, women all these rights. And as soon as women, we're doing fine, we're doing great, boop, Roe v. Wade is overturned. Racism is just like, oh, you guys are doing great. You're doing all this, racism is over. You got your black president. Boop. Now we got Trump. Now we're having all these protections rolled back. Capitalism. Oh yeah, everyone's fine. 2008. Yeah, that happened. So sorry, but capitalism, great system. Don't worry about it. Boop. Pandemic, inflation. Now look at us now. And then religion is religion. I guess I don't know. I feel like religion is like, it goes with life. It's like, oh, like, religion is like, everything's fine, everything's good. And, if something happens bad in your life, it's like, pray. And then if it gets better, it's like, oh, see, look, God is working. And if it doesn't get better, I want to say maybe the church will help you, but I've never, till this day, I've not met a church to actually help a Congress member who is in any sort of financial turmoil. Maybe the people in the congregation will get together to help, but the actual church itself, nah. So that is that is my episode on how each of these systems, that is patriarchy, racism, capitalism, and religion, are all narcissisms, just like disguised in a system instead of in a person, but it is all the same. They are all the exact same. They just show up in different ways in order to exploit people for their money and their labor and their time and their spiritual energy. So I hope you learned something. I hope this was interesting for you. I hope to see you again. This is Bri Speaks Podcast. If you don't, please do follow me on TikTok at Bri.Speaks. Follow me on YouTube. Well, this might be on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube at Bri.Speaks. If it's not, if you're not watching on YouTube and you're on Spotify. Anyways, also follow me on Spotify at Bri Speaks Podcast. If you want ADHD, free to ADHD hoodie, go to free2ADHD.com. That's FREETOADHD.com. They are super warm and cozy. And so thanks for hanging out. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.